This video, I will show you how to graph the parent graph of sine and cosine functions, and also we get to know what's the midline, amplitude, and period on sine cosine graph. Our definition of midline, amplitude, and period. So now we can start on the parent graph of sine first. So we graph in sine, or I'm making f of x equals sine x. Alright, we don't need to overthink about sine of x. Just try to, based on your prior knowledge, how you graph a function. Basically, we just need x and y. Okay. However, in this case, instead of x, we can think about x as the angle. So then think about unit circle. So I will draw a unit circle now. I have this, and I have at 0 right here, 0 pi, the coordinate of the point will be 1, 0. So remember that, and I label it as x and y. But this is the coordinate on the unit circle. When you do the coordinate on the graph, this x and y totally different than the x and y on a unit circle. Alright, so make sure we don't understand that. For each type graph, we have x and y represent for different coordinates. Okay, and then I can pick the next one, which is, this is pi over 6, and the coordinates will be square root of 3 over 2, comma 1/2. And I can keep going, and this will be pi over 4 or 45 degrees, and the coordinates will be square root of 2 over 2, comma square root of 2 over 2. And then next I have pi over 3, and then I have 1/2, comma square root of 3 over 2. And then next I have right here is pi over 2, which is 9 degrees, and it will give me 0, 1, okay? And so on. So if I want to pick a value, I will try to make it easier for myself. So pretty much I will start with 0 pi. Okay, so 0 pi is the first point I will choose to grab or to do the coordinates on the table for f of x equals sine x. Okay, so then when I have 0 pi for the x value, my y value will be, let's find out. So then sine of 0 pi give me 0. Okay, and then next I can choose pi over 6 as square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2, but I want a nice number. Okay, I can do it too, but then because I want a nice number, so I'm kinda don't want to deal with radical number right now, and I only want to focus on whole number. Okay, so the next value I will choose, that will be pi over 2, because it will give me a whole number as a y value. So next x value will be pi over 2, and then I have sine pi over 2 equals, and the y value, when I have sine pi over 2, that means I focus on the y value of the coordinates on the unit circle, so I have equals to 1. Okay, so think about it. If we keep going, which angle or where on the unit circle will give you the y value as the whole number. Hopefully you guys still remember about unit circle. So then next we have right here. So basically we have pi, and the coordinates of pi will be -1, 0. So on the graph right here, if I choose pi, I have x equal pi. So in order to find y, I will evaluate sine of pi, and it gives me the y value is 0. Okay, and I keep going on the unit circle, and the next place or the next angle that give me whole number as a y value will be right here, 3 pi over 2, and the coordinates of 3 pi over 2 is 0, -1. So now go back here, 3 pi over 2 as the x. So now sine of 3 pi over 2, we evaluate it, we get this value, which is -1. And then we keep going one more time, then we go back here. Yes, it's 0 pi, but we also got another name, which is 2 pi after we finish one rotation on the unit circle. So yes, we have the same coordinates. So then I have 2 pi here, 2 pi, and it's giving me sine of 2 pi equals 0. Okay. So as you can see, when I complete one rotation, because I start at 0 pi, I go all the way to pi over 2, go all the way to pi, go through 3 pi over 2, and then go to 2 pi. So I just complete one rotation on the unit circle, and that's also considered as one period on your graph. Okay. Alright, so let's graph the sine function. So we have right here, and for the x value, I have 0 pi, so also at 0, 0, or 0 pi. So for the x-axis, let's go by pi, 0 pi, and then next will be pi over 2, next one will be pi, next one is 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. So you can see the distance between each point on the x-axis go by pi over 2. Same here, from pi over 2 to pi is pi over 2, pi to 3 pi over 2 is pi over 2, and pi over 2 to 2 pi is pi over 2. So for the distance right here, we call increment. Okay. Alright, and now we're talking about y value. So I need to erase the label here for increment. And then for the y-axis, so look at the other y-axis or other y value right here. I know that my highest value will be 1, and my lowest value will be -1. Okay, so now I start plotting it. So I have 0 pi, so at 0 pi I have value is 0. I should use green color to make it better. As pi over 2, when my x is equal to pi over 2, my y equals to 1. So up here. When my x equals pi, my y value is 0. When my x equals 3 pi over 2, my y value is -1. And when my x equals 2 pi, my y value equals 0. Let's go. Now, how to connect them? I go like this. Is a wave. Okay. All right, and if you keep going, you will have more sine wave. But so then now we can label all the midline, midline, amplitude, and period. So what's the midline of this graph? Midline, again, we go back to definition, is the horizontal line that passes exactly in the middle between the graph's maximum and minimum point. So then for this graph right here, we have this is the maximum and this is the minimum point. So then halfway, so I label it like this. Okay, so then halfway of 1 and negative 1, it will be 0. So this line right here, that's the midline. Okay, and then for the amplitude, the definition says the vertical distance between the midline and one of the extremum points. So it can be from midline to max or midline to min, and they should be the same. So then I will have from midline raised to maximum right here, or midline to the minimum right here. So the distance is 1. Okay, so our amplitude, so on the side write down amplitude equals 1. And the next period is the distance between 2 consecutive maximum points or 2 consecutive minimum points. So if I keep going with this, with the graph, I can have like this, look like that. And period will be from this maximum point to that maximum point. Okay, so maybe I add the coordinate for that point right there. If we keep going, this one will be 5 pi over 2, and it's give me 1. Okay, so then I will have the length or the distance from this maximum point to the other maximum point, they have to be 2 consecutive maximum points, will be 2 pi. And how do I know it's 2 pi? So I know the x right here is pi over 2. So the coordinate of this point right here is pi over 2 comma 1. This maximum point right here is 5 pi over 2 comma 1. So to find the distance, the green line right here, I will take 5 pi over 2 minus pi over 2, and I have 4 pi over 2, which is equal to 2 pi. Okay, so period equals 2 pi. Hopefully this video help you understand more about how to find midline, how to find amplitude, how to find period on sine graph. And if you do practice on cosine graph, you find the same thing. Okay, so similar to this, it's just slightly different, but based on the unit circle, you can find it too. And this is just very basic knowledge on how to graph sine and cosine graph before we actually talk about how to do it faster, how to do it with a shortcut way. All right, to graph the f of x equal cosine x. So what we notice is I already moved the f of x equals sine x graph on the left corner right here, and then now we can do the cosine x, and the purpose of it is I want to keep the both of the graphs, and then we can compare them later at the end. Okay, so you notice that I changed my function into f of x equals to cosine x, and the x here is the represent for the data, which is the angle, and I keep my table the same for the x value. X equals 0 pi, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And my y value, instead of sine x, now I have cosine x. And the reason is to keep these 5 values for x is because I want to have the whole value for my y value. Okay, so now for cosine of 0 pi, I look, and that means I look at the x value on the unit circle now. So don't forget that the x value on the unit circle represent for cosine of the angle. And when I have at 0 pi, x value is 1. So cosine of 0 pi is 1. And keep going, I have cosine pi over 2 right here, and it's give me 0. Keep going, I get -1. Keep going, I get 0. And keep going back here, I get 1. Okay, we do it a little bit faster since I already explained everything in the progress when we're working on sine of x. So now we do it a little bit faster, and then we start graphing cosine now. So let me draw a line. Okay, and now we can start graphing cosine. Okay, so for x-axis, I will have, this is x, I still have 0 pi right here. Next one will be pi over 2. Next one will be pi. Next one is 3 pi over 2. And then next we have 2 pi. And if you notice, this from 0 pi to pi over 2, we go by pi over 2. So basically, we keep counting in terms of pi over 2. So the second one will be 2 pi over 2, and I reduce it, so I get pi. And this one, that's why it's 3 pi over 2. And then next we have 4 pi over 2. Okay? And whatever we can reduce, it will become another form of pi over 2. But basically, we going by pi over 2 on the x-axis. Alright? Okay, and then next we talk about the y-axis. So y-axis, and again, if I look at my table, my highest point or highest value is still 1. And my lowest value is still -1. So therefore, on my y-axis, I don't need to label like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't need all of them. I just need the highest one is 1, and the lowest one is -1. Okay, now next I will plot my x and y coordinates based on the table I just completed. So at 0 pi, I got 1. At pi over 2, I get 0. At pi, I get -1. 3 pi over 2, I get 0. And 2 pi, I get 1 again. So how do we graph these? It's actually look like this. It's a wave. So you get half of the wave and the other half of the wave like this. Okay. And luckily for graph of cosine, we can see 2 maximum points just in one period. So therefore we can find period without doing extra period for the graph. So then we can find period here. Maximum point to maximum point, they have to be consecutive, 2 consecutive maximum points. So the coordinates of this maximum point right here is 0, 1 or 0 pi, and this one right here is 2 pi, 1. And again, is to focus on the x distance, or the distance between 2 points on the x-axis. So therefore I take 2 pi minus 0 equal 2 pi. So that's the period. So period is also 2 pi. Okay. Now talk about the midline. So I have my maximum point here and my minimum point here. So midline will be in the middle. So the middle value between 1 and -1 will be 0. So therefore I have midline right here. So to get the same midline. And then next we'll talk about amplitude. So amplitude again is the vertical distance between the midline and one of the extremum points. So extremum points can be maximum or minimum. So from midline 0 to maximum, which is 1, or we can double check it one more time to make sure we got it right. So we can do midline to the minimum point, and it's also give us 1. Okay, so the distance is 1. Right here, this distance right here is 1. And you may ask, the second one should be -1. One thing about amplitude, we take the absolute value of the distance, okay, because it's about distance, so we want it positive. Therefore amplitude is always positive value. So amplitude is 1. All right, so we just finished how to graph parent graph of sine and cosine. In conclusion, we look at them, basically they kind of the same graph, but yes, they are same graph. They just shift to the left or to the right, and later when we learn more about cosine and sine, we can rewrite one function of sine in terms of cosine, and the other way around we can rewrite function of cosine in terms of sine. Okay, so hopefully this video help you guys understand more about the parents graph of sine, cosine, and also understand more about the features such as midline, amplitude, and period on cosine and sine graph.